Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of The Longing, where once again we will be reading more of Moby Dick. So, let us begin. Chapter 36. The Quarterdeck. Enter Ahab, then all. It was not a great while after the affair of the pipe that one morning shortly after breakfast, Ahab, as was his wont, ascended the cabin gangway to the deck. There most sea captains usually walk at that hour, as country gentlemen, after the same meal, take a few turns in the garden. Soon his steady ivory stride was heard, as to and fro he paced his old rounds, upon planks so familiar to his tread that they were all overdented, like geological stones, with the peculiar mark of his walk. Did you fixedly gaze, too, upon that ribbed and dented brow, there also you would see still stranger footprints, the footprints of his one unsleeping, ever-pacing thought. But on the occasion in question, those dents looked deeper, even as his nervous step that morning left a deeper mark. And so full of his thought was Ahab, that at every uniform turn that he made, now at the mainmast and now at the binnacle, you could almost see that thought turn in him as he turned and pace in him as he paced, so completely possessing him, indeed, that it all but seemed the inward mould of every outer movement. "Do you mark him, Flask?" whispered Stubb. "The chick that's in him pecks the shell. 'Twill soon be out." The hours wore on, Ahab now shut up within his cabin, anon pacing the deck, with the same intense bigotry of purpose in his aspect. It drew near the close of day. Suddenly he came to a halt by the bulwarks, and inserting his bone leg into the auger hole there, and with one hand grasping a shroud, he ordered Starbuck to send everybody aft. "Sir," said the mate, astonished at an order seldom or ever given on shipboard, except in some extraordinary case. "Send everybody aft," repeated Ahab. "Mastheads there, come down." When the entire ship's company were assembled, and with curious and not wholly unapprehensive faces, were eyeing him, for he looked not unlike the weather horizon when a storm is coming up, Ahab, after rapidly glancing over the bulwarks, and then darting his eyes among the crew, started from his standpoint, and as though not a soul were nigh him, resumed his heavy turns upon the deck. With bent head and half-slouched hat he continued to pace, unmindful of the wondering whispering among the men, till Stubb cautiously whispered to Flask that Ahab must have summoned them there for the purpose of witnessing a pedestrian feat. But this did not last long. Vehemently pausing, he cried, "What do ye do when you see a whale, men?" "Sing out for him," was the impulsive rejoinder from a score of clubbed voices. "Good," cried Ahab, with a wild approval in his tones, observing the hearty animation into which his unexpected question had so magnetically thrown them. "And what do you do? And what do you next, men?" "Lower away and after him." "And what tune is it ye pull to, men? A dead whale or a stove-boat?" More and more strangely, and fiercely glad and approving, grew the countenance of the old man at every shout. When the mariners began to gaze cautiously at each other, as if marvelling how it was that they themselves became so excited at such seemingly purposeless questions. But they were all eagerness again, as Ahab, now half revolving in his pivot hole, with one hand reaching high up a shroud, and tightly, almost convulsively grasping it, addressed them thus: "All ye mastheaders have before now heard me give orders about a white whale. Look ye, do ye see this Spanish ounce of gold?" Holding up a broad, bright coin to the sun. "It is a $16 piece, men. Do ye see it? Mr. Starbuck, hand me yon top maul." While the mate was getting the hammer, Ahab, without speaking, was slowly rubbing the gold piece against the skirts of his jacket, as if to heighten its lustre, and without using any words was meanwhile lowly humming to himself, producing a sound so strangely muffled and inarticulate that it seemed the mechanical humming of the wheels of his vitality in him. Receiving the top maul from Starbuck, he advanced towards the mainmast, with the hammer uplifted in one hand, exhibiting the gold with the other, and a high-raised voice exclaiming, "Whosoever of ye raises me a white-headed whale, with a wrinkled brow and a crooked jaw, whosoever of ye raises me that white-headed whale, with 3 holes punctured in his starboard fluke, look ye, whosoever of ye raises me that same white whale, he shall have this gold ounce, my boys." "Huzzah! Huzzah!" cried the seamen, as with swinging tarpaulins they hailed the act of nailing the gold to the mast. "It's a white whale, I say," resumed Ahab, as he threw down the topmaul. "A white whale. Skin your eyes for him, men. Look sharp for white water. If you see but a bubble, sing out." All this while Tashtego, Dagu, and Queequeg had looked on with even more intense interest and surprise than the rest, and at the mention of the wrinkled brow and crooked jaw, they had started, as if each was separately touched by some specific recollection. "Captain Ahab," said Tashtego, "that white whale must be the same that some call Moby Dick." "Moby Dick?" shouted Ahab. "Do you know the white whale then, Tash?" "Does he fantail a little curious, sir, before he goes down?" said the gay header deliberately. "And has he a curious spout too?" said Dagu. "Very bushy, even for a permacheti, and mighty quick, Captain Ahab." "And he have 1, 2, 3, oh, good many iron in him hide too, Captain," cried Queequeg disjointedly. "All twisky-tee, betwisk. Like him faltering hard for a word, and screwing his hand round and round, as though uncorking a bottle. Like him, corkscrew," cried Ahab. "Aye, Queequeg. The harpoons lie all twisted and wrenched in him. Aye, Dagu, his spout is a big one, like a whole shock of wheat, and white as a pile of our Nantucket wool after the great annual sheep-shearing. Aye, Tashtego. And he fantails like a split jib in a squall. Death and devil's men, it is Moby Dick ye have seen. Moby Dick, Moby Dick." "Captain Ahab," said Starbuck, who, with Stubb and Flask, had thus far been eyeing his superior with increasing surprise, but at last seemed struck with a thought which somewhat explained all the wonder. "Captain Ahab, I have heard of Moby Dick, but it was not Moby Dick that took off thy leg." Who told thee that?" cried Ahab. Then pausing, "Aye, Starbuck, aye, my heart is all round. It was Moby Dick that dismasted me. Moby Dick that brought me to this dead stump I stand on now." "Aye, aye," he shouted with a terrific loud animal sob, like that of a heart-stricken moose. "Aye, aye, it was that accursed white whale that raised me, made a poor pegging lubber of me for ever and a day." Then tossing both arms with measureless imprecations, he shouted out, "Aye, aye, and I'll chase him round Good Hope, and round the Horn, and round the Norway maelstrom, and round perdition's flames before I give him up. And this is what ye have shipped for, men, to chase that white whale on both sides of land, and all over all sides of earth, till he spouts black blood, and rolls fin out. What say ye, men? Will ye splice hands on it now? I think ye do look brave." "Aye, aye," shouted the harpooneers and seamen, running closer to the excited old man. "A sharp eye for the white whale, a sharp lance for Moby Dick." "God bless ye," he seemed to half sob and half shout. "God bless ye, men. Steward, go draw the great measure of grog. But what's this long face about, Mr. Starbuck? Wilt thou not chase the white whale? Art not game for Moby Dick?" "I am game for his crooked jaw, and for the jaws of death too, Captain Ahab, if it fairly comes in the way of a business we follow. But I came here to hunt whales, not my commander's vengeance. How many barrels will thy vengeance yield thee, even if thou gettest it, Captain Ahab. It will not fetch thee much in our Nantucket market. Nantucket market, hoot, but come closer, Starbuck. Thou requirest a little lower layer. If money's to be the measurer, man, and the accountants have computed their great counting house, the globe, by girdling it with guineas, 1 to every 3 parts of an inch, then let me tell thee that my vengeance will fetch a great premium here. And with that, I think we're actually going to call it, because there is another half of this chapter that we're not going to be able to do today. So, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, or night. No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow with more of The Longing. Goodbye.